So today you are going to be completing the first real step of our project that we've been gathering all of our written element and our sources for. So you should have your sketch that combines the elements off of your PowerPoint, and I printed out some of the pages of my PowerPoint here so that I'll have them, since I can't have them up on my computer because we're filming, but so I printed them out so I would have a source to look at as I am sketching on my final paper. So for your final paper, I think the most important thing is that you're, hopefully you have a good sketch and your ideas have come together, but there's no real detail on this sketch. It's just a bunch of sort of scribble scrabble mapping out where things go. Well, now it is time to draw exactly where you want them, because we will be also shading them in pen. But the first thing you've got to do is lightly start mapping out where everything goes. And the biggest thing is you should be starting with an eye that is of a decent size. It should be, you know, filling the page because you're going to be modifying from it. So we're going to lightly be sketching on here. You can use either a magic rub eraser gently, or you can use your kneaded eraser on this surface. The kneaded eraser is probably the most gentle, so if you're needing to erase something, use the kneaded eraser. We don't want to damage the watercolor before we get it done, so you should start by sketching an eye on here. In the lesson, there's all types of review remember, we're going to draw still a realistic eye and we're going to modify it. So here's my circle, and for this, I mean, I would definitely be using a tool. So I'm going to look for something that is this size that I can trace, so I actually have a real circle, not just an approximate one. So I'm going to, on this, anything that should have an actual, you know, shape to it, I'm going to actually use a circle and trace. I'm going to be as exact as I can. Remember, we're going to divide our circle in half and then divide again to do our pupil so that the pupil is sitting in the right spot. And even though I will be modifying it quite a bit, I still want things sitting in the right place, so we'll still overall read as an eye. So there's where my pupil is going to sit. This is going to be where my tear duct is, my lid line, and then my lashes. And I'm not going to draw all of them right now. I'm just going to draw the first, like, guiding ones, because we know there's a lot more lashes that have to go on there. And I'm going to put these here. Now, I'm starting to modify using my sources on here. So I'm going to do things like, I need to find a real circle that I'm going to then build my clock on. I don't want to just be building it off of something that's an approximation. So I'm going to find a circle to trace, and I'm just going to use the lid for my glue stick because it's a pretty good, and it's sized pretty well, circle. So at this point you are trying to be a little more exact and using tools that will give you the real shapes that you want. Okay, and then I'm going to get rid of this excess stuff. And I'm going to start drawing on here my other objects. So I've got a clock, I've got a gear, or not a gear, this is a saw blade. So my saw blade is going to be on the outer edges of my eye. So I'm going to like look at my image that I printed from my PowerPoint, and I'm going to start drawing this in with accuracy. not just sketching quickly, but trying to draw something that's like what I want to end up with, okay? I'm going to have to turn this to be able to draw this correctly. And I see these are smaller than the ones on this side, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to fix these to make a match set. So here it is we're like finessing the details, and that's what we should be doing at this point. We're not just sketching in a basic, we're trying to sketch in, you know, the real details of what we want to end up with, okay? So I'm good with that. I'm going to be working on putting the Freemason symbol, that's this right here, in here. I'm going to have to modify it some, but I'm going to start with the circular piece that sits at the top, and it has these two pins. I'm using a straight edge to do it. So if something should be straight, this is the time to be using a tool to make it straight and fixing if it's not right. You are going to trace over it in pen, so you'll have one more chance at that point to sort of adapt it. Okay, it has, I'm looking at my source, so as I'm drawing this, I'm looking, and the closer your source is, the better to your actual object. So I'm just going to pass here, and it pulls to tight here, does the same thing on this side, and then it pulls to tight here. And there's a piece that's here that goes into this bottom. And definitely make sure it's straight. And before I just drew in some sort of like basic approximation for my city, and here I'm really going to attempt to make it look like a skyline of New York, which is where my dad lived a good portion of his life. So like these details that are part of this Mason symbol, this is something I would never get by just sketching in an approximation. So you're always looking at a source if you're wanting it to be accurate, and I want it to be accurate at this point. I'm not, once you're done sketching and mapping it out, now I'm actually really trying to make this look accurate. And the Mason symbol also had a letter G on it, which I'm going to include in here. And like stylistically, I need to try and copy what I'm seeing. So if you're using something that has a style of a font, you should be looking at that font as you draw it. There's my G. This is a little bit bigger here. It has like a double. Okay, and I'm going to in here do my clock. And I'm going to use the Roman numerals. So making sure that I know what they are, that they all fit. So this one's got to go closer. So at this point, this is why we're always like working out. We're working light. 3, okay, and 4. So IV, V. This is V. Okay. X. Okay, and that's my basic clock. I'm going to add probably some details to make it look old. And I'm going to add the time of my dad's death in there. Okay, now I know I want to use up in the corner, I'm going to do a moon, and I'm going to use his Scorpio symbol as part of my sky. And I was looking up cool like moon faces, and I found something kind of awesome that I like, so I'm going to use that as my source that I look at. But I'm going to put that in my night sky up here because my quote has to do with sleeping. So I'm going to do actually my moon that is sleeping, and I'm going to oversize it some. Still going to have brow up here, but it's going to appear more cloud-like but it's going to be in the correct place. And then I'm going to draw my moon in here. So as I'm doing this and I'm looking at my source, I'm not necessarily trying to copy everything, but I just like the style. I like where the nose is sitting. And I'm going to draw my face here. Bottom part of my moon. I'm going to have to make an adjustment there. But this is the point where we're working out what this really looks like. My moon is going to be sleeping. So I'm going to show it with its eyes closed. The nice thing is, though, this gives me ideas of how to like draw a cheek, draw how I might actually shade it with my pen. This is giving me hints. So when I'm looking for sources, I'm looking for that kind of imagery as I'm doing it. Okay, so I know specifically when I'm looking, I want to see a drawing of a moon drawing. Now, I do like the idea of the stars that are here. I did have another one printed out of some sort of modified stars, but I want to use for sure the Scorpio. So as I'm putting this in, I'm paying attention to accuracy. This is like my final sketch on my this paper is the watercolor paper. It's what I'll eventually draw with my pen on, and I'm going to map out my city down here in the bottom, but I'm going to be looking at my source as I do it. And I might even like put, I don't know that I might even put like the Statue of Liberty in this corner and then map out from there. And I might spread things out a little bit, but the deal is I have a source. I know what my shapes are that I'm looking for, and that is it for this part of the sketch. Use your sources, be accurate, sketch lightly in pencil, and then I'll be back with you once I get my sketch done, and we'll do the final in pen.